people of YouTube, and welcome back to another episode of Solos for Beginners. Brandon Valentine here, and today we're going to take a look at the epic and mighty, so mighty, solo from one of my favourite songs, Epic by Faith No More. A song and solo that I actually learnt early on in my guitar playing. This solo is doused in harmonies. It is just laden with them, smattering, thickly spread, it's delicious. And so once I've taught you the solo, I'm going to go back and teach you some of the harmonies there. I'm going to teach you one of the lower harmonies that is going on, and then I'm going to teach you an upper third. So you can start getting a bit of a grip on what the relationship between these notes is. Without further ado, onwards. So we're going to start this solo off very easily with just a massive E chord. Open E, open G, back down to the E. Then we're going to slide up to the 5th fret of the D string and slide down to the 4th fret, holding that out. And then we're going to start the octave climb, in which through the whole phrase we're going to hold octave chords, which is just going to simply be whatever root note you have, and then 2 strings up and 2 frets across. So in this case, 3rd fret of the A string, 5th fret of the G string. Move up a whole tone to the 5th one, whole tone again to 7, tone and a half to 10, up to the A, up to the C, up to the D, down to the B. So if we focus on the root note of those, which is simply going to be whatever note we're playing on the A string, it's going to be 3, 5, 7, 10, 12, 15, 17, 14. Yes. Oh. So the first lead segment we're going to have to deal with here is going to be in which we're just going to slide from 14 to 15 on the high E string, and then back down to the 14, 3 hits and a slide down to 12. 14, 14, 14, slide to 12, and then we're going to do the exact same thing, but from 12 back up to 14. And then another hit on the 14, hammering to 15, pulling off back to 14, and then 15 on the high B. High B, there's only the one B. So all up that gives us. And then we're going to go back to the 14th fret of the high E string. And on that 14, we're going to hit 3 times with a slide to 10. Getting up to the 12 on the high E. And then with your ring finger, 13 on the B. Is the next little part. So once we're holding out that 13 on the B string, slide down to 8 on the B string, 7, 7 on the G string, sliding down to 5. Just something to note with this solo is that it's a brilliant and very simple way to get from your rhythm parts of the song to your lead parts of the song, particularly in a band with one guitar, which Faith No More is, because you're spending the whole rest of the song down in the heaviest, loudest part of the neck, beefing it out, being one with the bass and the drums, and then you want to get up to, but without having too much of a switch between dynamics. Let's go back over that second section again, but with some tabs and a little bit slowly. And so from all the way down here, we're going to get all the way back up to the 12th fret, the high E string, and deal with this little lick, which is pretty simple. It's really just 12 on the high E string, 13 on the B, back to that 12 on the high E, 14 on the high E, 15 on the B, and then this little part, which is just 13 on the B string, 12 on the B string, a hammer on between 12 and 13, and then a pull off back to 12. 12 on the G, 11 on the G. Now it's a good idea that once you've finished that 15th fret on the B string, and you get here to this next phase for that you have your forefinger barred across the 12th fret of both the B and the G, allowing you to do pretty minimal movement and less risk of getting kind of finger tied because it's tight spaces up there. Real estate is at a premium. It's a housing crisis of fingers. And so once we've completed, I like to use my middle finger to get all the way up to the 14th fret on the high E string. In which we're just going to use our middle finger and our ring fingers to go 14 on the high E, 15 on the B, back to the 14 on the high E, 15 on the high E. Forefinger back to the E, 12th fret, resolving. So let's go over that section again slowly and with some tabs. Here we are on the home stretch with the solo with a classic rock and roll lick that everyone needs to have in their repertoire. In which we're just going to do a multi-string bend with the 12 on the B and the 14 on the G string, but you're going to bend only the 14 up a full tone. And now keeping your forefinger right there on the 12th fret of the B string, we're going to hammer on to 15. Pull off back to 12, hitting that 14 on the G string, and you're going to do that 6 times over. Now this might be a bit of an alien thing to you if you've never done it before. But start slow. And when it comes to the right hand, I actually use kind of a rake. I don't alternate pick that. I pick down on the B string, and then go back up to the G string, and down, 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 down. And then a full tone bend on the 15 of the B string. If we're to dive a little bit deeper into this lick, something that I actually do is I mute the D string very gently with my picking hand, simply to avoid having open strings ringing out over the top of each other and muddying the lick. I'm not going for a full blown palm mute, it's just having a little bit of the flesh of your hand on top of it so it deadens out the open note. Brilliantly done, everyone. Now that we've learnt that solo, let's go back to the start and go through it together, slowly and with some tabs. So now that we've learnt the main part of the solo, I want to take a little bit of time to talk about the many harmonies that are going on in this solo. But I'm going to start with my favourite one, and it's not some big up there matching solo style third. It's a lower octave, way back down on the A string on the 7th fret. And for this whole pattern you're going to hold that same octave shape that you have from the climb. 2 frets up, 2 strings up. Now, since that there's not really any rhythm guitar behind this solo, there's not really any big chords taking up half the room in the mix, there's some amazing sick bass lines, but there's this lower harmony to beef everything out and give it so much size and so much weight. So the relationship between these octave chords and the high notes is obviously just an octave, it's not a third or a fifth or anything. And if you notice, they highlight only certain phrases in the solo, giving it a nice ebb and flow and allowing other parts to have its own time when you ring out on the octaves. Now the next harmony I'm going to show you in here is just an upper third of the main phrases. But I'm going to do something with it that is similar to what the lower harmony does, where it has an ebb and a flow. Follows with, rings out, follows with, rings out, allowing for that dynamic to have a bit of a wave to it. For those who know this next part, I'm sorry, but we must share the information with everyone. So when it comes time to working harmonies out, first and foremost we need to know what key and scale we're in. We are in E minor. When I say a third, I simply mean 3 notes up on the scale. Not grammatically, 3 notes up on the scale. When it comes time to working out harmonies, that's really the biggest part of information you need to know. Now, as an example, say we want to find out the third for E, and we know that we're playing in E minor. So, E, then you're going to go up E minor scale 3 notes. 1, 2, 3, and there you go. So say you have a lead part, a little lick that you want to work out. For instance, you find your first note, the E, now go 3 notes up in that scale. Right to that G there, and already you got the starting point of that harmony. And now for this part, I'm just matching a third up for all the notes that I'm playing against the solo. Thank you for joining today everyone, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, and if you did, make sure that you click that like button and click that subscribe button. It helps me out immensely. And make sure to let me know in the comments what other videos you'd like me to do. And also click the bell for notifications so that you never have to go a day without seeing my wondrous and obnoxious head. I'm Brandon Valentine, thank you very much for joining, and I'll see you guys next time.